Ambassador Velthrix stood at the observation window of the diplomatic vessel, Eternal Harmony, and watched the blue planet grow larger. Earth, the humans called it. A simple name for what seemed like a simple world. The planet had one moon, one sun, and billions of the creatures that had somehow built ships fast enough to catch the attention of the Galactic Concordance. Velthrix was made of living crystal. Light passed through their body and came out in rainbow patterns on the walls. The Scifistories were known throughout the galaxy for staying calm in any situation. They had welcomed 847 species into the Concordance over 12,000 years. This would be number 848, just another routine first contact. What do we know about them? Velthrix asked their assistant, a small furry creature named Keth, who belonged to the Morani species. Keth pulled up the data on a floating screen. They call themselves humans. Carbon-based life forms. Average height about 1.7 meters. Average lifespan around 80 years. They breathe oxygen and require liquid water. Nothing unusual there. Velthrix nodded. So far, so ordinary. They evolved on a third planet from their star, Keth continued. Took them about 200,000 years to go from basic tools to space travel. That's actually quite fast, Ambassador. What about their physical abilities? Velthrix asked. This was always an important question. Some species were dangerous. Some had claws or venom or could spit acid. The Concordance needed to know what they were dealing with. Keth made a sound that might have been a laugh. Nothing impressive. They have no natural weapons. No claws worth mentioning. No armor or thick hide. Their teeth are flat and weak. They cannot run very fast. They cannot fly. They have poor night vision, and their sense of smell is almost useless. They sound helpless, Velthrix said. They are what we call a prey species, Keth agreed. They evolved to be eaten by larger creatures. Honestly, Ambassador, it is surprising they survived long enough to build spaceships. The diplomatic team landed in a large human city called Geneva. The humans had prepared a welcoming ceremony with music and flags and many officials in formal clothing. Velthrix observed them carefully. They moved slowly compared to most species. Their bodies were soft and covered in thin fabric for protection against their own mild weather. They had to eat 3 times every single day just to keep functioning. Weak, Velthrix thought. Fragile. They would make good artists, perhaps, or traders. Some minor role in the galactic community. The ceremony included what the humans called cultural exchange. Velthrix sat in a comfortable chair while humans showed videos and presentations about their world and their history. It was meant to be a celebration of human achievement. Velthrix expected to be bored. They were not bored for long. The first video showed something called persistence hunting. Velthrix watched as a human ran after a large animal across a hot, dry landscape. The animal was faster than the human. Much faster. It sprinted away and disappeared over a hill. But the human did not stop. The human kept running at a slow, steady pace. Under a burning sun. For hours, the animal had to stop and rest. Its body could not cool itself fast enough. The human caught up to it, and the animal ran again, and stopped again. And the human caught up again. This happened over and over, hour after hour, until finally the animal could not run anymore. It fell down, exhausted and dying, and the human walked up to it and killed it with a simple wooden spear. Velthrix felt something cold move through their crystal body. They had never seen anything like this. Most predators use speed or strength or ambush tactics. Humans used patience. They used endurance. They simply refused to stop until their prey was dead. The next presentation was about something called domestication. Velthrix learned that humans had taken wolves, which were deadly pack predators with sharp teeth and powerful jaws, and turned them into loyal companions. Not through genetic modification or technology, through sheer persistence. The humans had simply stayed near the wolves, generation after generation, feeding them and breeding them, until the wolves forgot they had ever been wild. Now wolves lived in human homes and played with human children. Then came the food presentation. A smiling human offered Velthrix something small and red called a pepper. Before Velthrix could refuse, the human bit into one and chewed happily. The screen behind her showed a scientific explanation. The red color and the burning chemical inside the pepper existed specifically to stop creatures from eating it. It was a plant's defense mechanism. A weapon. Humans ate it for fun. They called it spicy and said it made food more interesting. Velthrix stood up suddenly, surprising everyone in the room. "I must contact my ship," they said. Their voice was calm because Selfari voices were always calm. But inside their crystal mind, alarm signals were flashing. "Please continue without me. I will return shortly." They walked quickly to a private room and opened a secure channel to Concordance Intelligence. "I need a full threat assessment on the human species," Velthrix said. Immediately. Priority level red. There was silence on the other end. Priority level red was reserved for species that might pose a danger to the entire Concordance. "Ambassador," the intelligence officer said carefully, "our initial scans show humans are a non-threatening species. They have no natural weapons and their technology is primitive compared to ours." "I am aware of the initial scans," Velthrix said. "They are wrong. Something is very wrong. These creatures are not prey. I do not know what they are, but they are not prey." The intelligence officer agreed to begin the assessment. Velthrix ended the call and stood alone in the quiet room, thinking about a human running under a hot sun, never stopping, never giving up, until their prey dropped dead from exhaustion, for the first time in 300 years. Velthrix felt afraid. The Concordance Intelligence building on the capital world of Sirith Prime was the most secure facility in known space. 300 analysts from 40 different species worked there, gathering information and assessing threats. In 12,000 years, they had correctly predicted every major conflict, every dangerous species, every potential problem. They were never wrong. They were wrong about humans. Senior Analyst Vren was a tall, thin creature covered in gray scales. He had worked in threat assessment for 60 years. He had seen dangerous species before. The Krix with their acid blood. The Morthani with their 4 poisonous tails. The Veth Hegemony with their endless hunger for conquest. He thought he understood what dangerous meant. Then he read the file on humans. It started with the biology report. Vren read it 3 times because he was certain there must be errors. Humans could survive the loss of limbs. Not just survive, but continue fighting. They could lose an arm or a leg and their bodies would seal the wound and keep functioning. There were documented cases of humans losing multiple organs and still living for decades afterward. Their healing abilities were remarkable. Broken bones would fix themselves. Cut skin would grow back together. Even damaged organs could sometimes repair themselves over time. Most species would simply die from such injuries. Humans treated them as inconveniences. The temperature tolerance data made Vren put down his reading tablet and take a short walk to calm himself. Humans could function in temperatures ranging from -40 degrees to +50 degrees. That was a range of 90 degrees. Most species had a comfortable range of maybe 15 or 20 degrees. Humans could survive in conditions that would kill almost anyone else in the Concordance. But the truly disturbing information was in the section about human behavior. Humans were social creatures. This was not unusual. Many species were social. What was unusual was the way humans formed attachments. They bonded with their families. They bonded with their friends. They bonded with complete strangers they had just met. They bonded with animals, with plants, with machines, with abstract ideas. A human could meet a small furry animal and within minutes would be willing to die to protect it. They called pets family members. They held funerals for robots. They gave names to their vehicles and talked to them like friends. This bonding instinct had no limits and no logic. Vren read about something called a spite. He had to look up the word because it did not exist in his language. Spite was when a human chose to harm themselves specifically because it would also harm an enemy. Humans would accept their own death if it meant their enemy would also die. They would suffer incredible pain just to make sure their opponents suffered too. This was insane. No rational species behaved this way. Survival should always be the priority. But humans did not think about survival the way other species did. They thought about winning, about revenge, about justice. The historical section was somehow worse. Humans had been at war with themselves almost constantly throughout their entire existence. They had invented weapons specifically designed to kill other humans. Not for hunting, not for defense against predators, just for killing each other. They had nuclear weapons powerful enough to destroy their whole planet, and they had chosen not to use them only barely several times. They had concepts like total war and mutually assured destruction. They had fought battles where millions died. And they kept going. They rebuilt. They forgave their enemies and then fought them again a generation later. Nothing stopped them. Nothing made them give up. Vren called his two most senior assistants into his office. "I need you both to review the human file," he said. "Tell me I am overreacting." They read the file. The first assistant, a being made of living metal called Thresh, finished first. Without saying anything, Thresh submitted a request for immediate leave on medical grounds. The second assistant, a small floating creature named Min, began making high-pitched sound that their species made when they were extremely frightened. "You are not overreacting," Min said finally. "These creatures are terrifying." Vren began writing his final assessment. He worked for 3 days without sleeping. He checked every fact twice. He consulted with experts in biology, psychology, history, and warfare. Every conversation made him more certain. The final report was 40 pages long, but the conclusion was simple. He wrote it carefully, knowing that the High Council would read these words. Humans were persistent predators. This was their most important characteristic. They did not need to be faster than their prey. They did not need to be stronger. They simply needed to never stop. Their ancestors had chased animals for days until the animals died of exhaustion. This strategy had shaped everything about them. They never gave up, ever, on anything. Their bodies were designed for endurance. Their minds were designed for endurance. Their entire civilization was built on the principle that if you kept trying long enough, you would eventually win. Other species saw obstacles and calculated whether success was possible. Humans saw obstacles and started figuring out how to get past them. They formed pack bonds with anything and would die to protect those bonds. They consumed poisons for entertainment. They decorated their bodies with permanent markings just to prove they could handle the pain. They climbed mountains and crossed oceans and went into space not because they needed to, but because the challenge existed. Vren finished his report with a single recommendation: extreme caution. Do not threaten humans. Do not threaten anything a human cares about. Do not give them a reason to view the concordance as an enemy. The final line of his report was the simplest and the most important. Humans are not prey. Humans have never been prey. The Veth hegemony did not read the concordance threat assessment. They did not care about the opinions of what they considered a weak alliance of cowards and merchants. The Veth were conquerors. They had taken 60 worlds in the last century. They knew how to identify easy targets. Humans seemed like the easiest target they had ever seen. Colony of New Brisbane was a small human settlement on a planet they called Haven. About 80,000 humans lived there, mostly farmers and miners and families looking for a quiet life away from the crowded cities of Earth. They had a tiny defense force of maybe 2,000 soldiers with basic weapons. The planet had no strategic value. It was perfect. Commander Dex led the invasion fleet. 30 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel in a perfect formation above the planet. Dex broadcast his terms: surrender immediately, and the humans would be allowed to live as servants of the hegemony. Resist, and they would be destroyed. The human response was a single word: no. Dex was pleased. Resistance meant his soldiers could practice their combat skills. This would be good training for the younger warriors. The initial assault went exactly as planned. Veth dropships landed outside the main city. Veth soldiers, each one standing 3 meters tall with 4 arms and natural armor that could stop most weapons, marched toward the human positions. The human defenders fired their guns and their small missiles. Some Veth soldiers fell. Most did not. Within 6 hours, the human military was destroyed. Their command center was captured. Their communication systems were disabled. By every normal standard of warfare, the battle was over. New Brisbane had fallen. Dex waited for the humans to begin surrendering. He waited a long time. A Veth patrol was walking through the residential district when a wounded human woman stepped out of a doorway. She was missing one arm and her face was covered in blood. She should have been in shock. She should have been dying. Instead, she was smiling. She had been holding a grenade against her body for 6 hours, waiting for a Veth officer to come close enough. The explosion killed her and 4 Veth soldiers instantly. This was the first sign that something was wrong. Reports started coming from all across the colony. Humans who should have been dead were still fighting. Farmers with no military training were using hunting rifles to shoot at Veth soldiers from hiding spots. Children were sneaking into Veth camps at night to damage equipment. A group of elderly humans had booby-trapped an entire building with homemade explosives. Dex ordered more troops to the surface. He sent better soldiers with heavier weapons. He destroyed buildings where humans were hiding. He made examples of prisoners to frighten the others into submission. But humans did not become frightened. They became angry. Within a month, the Veth had lost 3,000 soldiers. Not to military forces. To shopkeepers and teachers and doctors and farmers who refused to stop fighting. They fought with guns and knives and rocks and their bare hands. They attacked Veth supply lines. They poisoned water sources. They wrote messages on walls in the blood of dead Veth soldiers. The messages said things like, "We are coming for you, and you should not have come here." Dex could not understand it. He had conquered dozens of worlds. He had seen species far more powerful than humans surrender after losing their militaries. But humans did not seem to know that they had lost. They did not seem to understand that resistance was pointless. A captured human explained it to Dex during interrogation. The human was badly injured and knew he was going to die. He smiled anyway. "You do not understand us at all," the human said. "We have been fighting things bigger and stronger than us since we lived in caves. We have been fighting each other for 10,000 years. We have survived ice ages and plagues and nuclear weapons. You think you are frightening? You think you are powerful?" The human laughed, and the laugh turned into a cough, and the cough turned into blood. But he kept talking. "You are nothing. You are just another problem to solve. And we solve problems by never giving up. Never. Even if every single one of us dies, we will make sure you remember us. We will make sure you never come back." He died still laughing. 3 months after the invasion began, Dex finally requested reinforcements. Then he requested more reinforcements. Then he requested permission to retreat. The Hegemony High Command was furious. 30 warships could not defeat 80,000 farmers? But the numbers did not lie. 9,000 Veth soldiers were dead. The cost of holding the planet was far greater than any possible benefit. Worse, news of the resistance had spread to other human colonies. Ships full of human volunteers were arriving at Haven, smuggling through the blockade in small vessels. Coming to join the fight, the humans had not defeated the Veth through superior technology or numbers. They had defeated them through sheer, stubborn, terrifying refusal to stop fighting. When Concordance observers arrived after the Veth retreat, they found the humans already rebuilding. A farmer named Sarah Chun offered the observers tea and apologized for the state of her home. Half of it had been destroyed by Veth weapons. She was living in the remaining half while constructing new walls herself. "Sorry about the mess," she said cheerfully. "We have been a bit busy lately." The observers wrote their report in silence. They had seen many aftermath sites from many wars. They had never seen anything like this. News of New Brisbane spread through the galaxy faster than any official report. Trading ships carried the stories. Diplomats whispered about it in corridors. By the time the Concordance Council met to discuss humanity's application for membership, every species already knew what had happened. The Veth hegemony demanded action. Their ambassador stood before the council and called humans a dangerous and violent species that must be contained. He showed images of dead Veth soldiers. He described the brutal methods humans had used against his people. He insisted that the Concordance declare humans a threat to galactic peace. "They are savages," the Veth ambassador said. "They do not understand civilized behavior. They attacked our soldiers with farming tools and kitchen knives. They turned their own children into weapons. This species is a danger to everyone." Ambassador Velthrix stood to respond. The crystal being had spent 6 months living among humans since that first contact on Earth. They had studied human history and art and science. They had eaten human food and listened to human music and watched humans grieve and love and fight and forgive. They understood things about humanity that the threat assessment could never capture. The Concordance records show that the Veth attack New Brisbane without provocation, Velthrix said calmly. The humans were defending their homes and their families. Everything they did in response to your aggression. The Veth ambassador made an angry sound. They should have surrendered. Any rational species would have surrendered. That is exactly the point, Velthrix said. Humans are not like other species. They do not calculate the odds of survival and make logical decisions. They protect what they love. They fight until they win or they die. And if they die, they make sure their enemies remember the cost. The vote was held that same day. 17 species voted against human membership, including the Veth and their allies. 830 species voted in favor. The decision was not close. One delegate, an ancient being who had served on the council for 3 centuries, explained his vote simply. "I would rather have humans inside the alliance than outside it. I would rather they be our friends than our enemies. Because I have read the reports, and I believe that anyone who fights against humans will eventually lose. Maybe not today, maybe not in a year, but humans do not forget and they do not stop. I want to be on their side when the next great challenge comes." The welcoming ceremony was held on Sirith Prime. Thousands of representatives from hundreds of species gathered to witness humanity take its place in the galactic community. The human ambassador was a woman named Elena Vasquez, who had survived the siege of New Brisbane. She still walked with a limp from her injuries, but she climbed the steps to the speaking platform without help. "We are grateful for this welcome," she said. "Humanity has dreamed of reaching the stars for as long as we have existed. We have told stories about it, We have built rockets and telescopes and sent messages into the darkness, hoping someone would answer. And now we are here, among friends, ready to learn and grow alongside you." She paused and looked out at the vast assembly of alien species. Many of them were larger than humans. Many were stronger. Some could fly or breathe underwater or survive in the vacuum of space. Humans could do none of these things. But humans were standing here anyway, equal members of an alliance that spanned thousands of light years. "We know you have concerns about us," Elena continued. "We know our history is violent. We know we can be aggressive and stubborn and difficult. But these same qualities have brought us to the stars. They will make us loyal allies and fierce defenders of those we call friends. We do not abandon our friends, ever, for any reason." Later that evening, Velthrix found Elena standing alone on a balcony, looking up at the unfamiliar stars. The Crystal Ambassador stood beside her in comfortable silence for a long moment. "I have a question," Velthrix said eventually. "When I first met your people, I asked a human what they feared most. Do you remember what she said?" Elena smiled. "Other humans." "Yes, I have studied your history since then. You have done terrible things to each other. Wars, genocides, cruelty beyond imagination. And yet here you stand, unified enough to reach the stars. How is this possible?" Elena thought about it for a while. The alien stars glittered above them, thousands of points of light that humans were only beginning to explore. "Because we forgive," she said finally. "We hurt each other badly. We always have. But we also forgive each other and start again. We believe that people can change. We believe that tomorrow can be better than today. Maybe that is foolish. Maybe it is just another form of our stubbornness. But it is who we are." A young human soldier walked past them, part of the first human contingent assigned to Concordance peacekeeping forces. Other species watched him as he moved through the crowd. Their expressions were hard to read, somewhere between respect and wariness. They looked at him the way prey animals looked at each other when a predator entered the area. The soldier noticed Velthrix and Elena watching him. He smiled and held up a container of dark liquid. "Coffee?" he offered. "It is not very good coffee, but I brought some from Earth. Would you like to try some?" Velthrix looked at the small, soft creature offering to share his food. This strange being whose ancestors had chased animals to death, who had tamed wolves and eaten poison for fun, who had split atoms and nearly destroyed themselves a dozen times before finally reaching the stars. This human, who came from a species that never stopped fighting and never stopped forgiving. "Yes," Velthrix said. "I would like that very much." The soldier poured 3 cups and handed them out. He raised his own cup in a gesture Elena had explained was called a toast. "To new friends," he said. "To new friends," Elena agreed. Velthrix lifted their cup, watching the steam rise in the alien air. Somewhere out in the galaxy, threats were gathering. Enemies were making plans. Challenges were waiting that no species could face alone. But humanity was here now. And whatever came next, they would not face it alone either. The 3 of them drank their coffee under the stars. And for a moment, the galaxy felt a little less cold and a little less dark.